Parshas Va'era, Daf Nun Zayin. And the maimah we're going to learn is about the spiritual meaning of the staff of Aharon turning into a snake and then back into a stick after swallowing the other snakes of the magicians of Pari. So it begins at the bottom of Nun Vav, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe el Leib Hashem said to Moshe and Aharon, kach matecha, take your staff, and throw it before Pari. And it will turn into a serpent. And then Aharon throws down his staff, it turns into a snake. And then Vayivla mate Aharon, that's matecha. Aaron's staff swallowed the staffs of the magicians. So now, what is the meaning of this? What's the idea of the staff turning into a snake and then turning back into a staff? And why is this the first miracle that happens to bring the Jewish people to be redeemed, to be liberated from Egypt? So to understand this, we need to first understand the concept of being liberated from Mitzrayim. So the pasuk says, "Nitzotzos Mitzrayim." They emptied out Mitzrayim, and the Gemara in Pesachim says that this means that they emptied it out like a pond without fish, meaning that Mitzrayim was chocker full of spiritual sparks of nitzotzos, spiritual energy, and then they emptied it all out through their time in Mitzrayim. So the concept of nitzotzos, of sparks, is based on the concept of the Arizal, of Bira Nitzotzos and Shiras HaKelim, that the before we have this world, and included in this world is all the spiritual worlds that form part of the chain of evolution of spiritual energy that comes down lower and lower until our world, the whole Shalshalos. So before that, there is Olam HaTohu, the world of chaos. Now in Olam HaTohu, there's great spiritual power, but the problem is twofold. Number one is that each sphere doesn't work with the other spheres. Each one is something separate for itself. And number two is that within each sphere, the keli doesn't contain the light. The light and the energy is too powerful for the weak keli, and therefore it explodes. And that's the two reasons for the problems with Olam HaTohu. And from very holy origins, it becomes egotistical and therefore falls down into the worlds of separation, into Biyah, and in particular into our world. Now, this concept of Tohu is hinted in the end of Vayishlach, where it talks about the kings of Esav that came before. There was the first king of Yaakov, of the Jewish people. And these, the seven kings, are seven midas of Tohu that all broke and fell down into Klippa, into the which is the place of concealment of godliness in our world. So, as an example, the neshama, before it comes into a body, our soul is very holy, and it's one with Hashem. Like Eliyahu said, Chai Hashem Hashemarati Lefanav. He promised by Hashem, before whom I stood, he said. And that's because the neshama is one with Hashem. It stands before Hashem. And so without any concealment, but then it comes down through the levels and is enclosed in a physical body where the world and everything in it appears to be a separate yesh, a separate existence, without requiring to lean on Hashem. And we don't see how everything's nullified before Hashem. So similarly with Shiras HaKelim, these sparks are great spiritual energies, but we don't see that. And what they appear to be is part of physical items, which is klippa. The klippa is that we don't see how they're Hashem. So they darken these sparks so that they appear to be a separate yesh. This is like Pare, who said that the Nile is mine, Li Ari, the Nile is mine, and I created it. So he denies Hashem, although he still accepted that Hashem is the most powerful of all, the God of all gods, but he felt, I am also a God. Chas v'shalom. So from this high spiritual source, these sparks therefore fall down all the way into Klippa. And the idea of Klippa is like what the simple meaning of Klippa. That Klippa is the shell or the peel of a fruit or a nut. And the only way to take out the fruit, which is the good thing inside that we want to eat, is through breaking the shell. And similarly, there's these sparks of holiness, but they're in a shell of klipa that conceal that godly spark, and therefore the only way to redeem them, to liberate these sparks, is through breaking the shell, which is what happened in Egypt. Egypt was full of these sparks, and therefore there were the makos, which were breaking the outer shell, shaking them, and then revealing the godly sparks within. Next paragraph, in next zip. Now, when the Torah talks about Gan Eden, it actually doesn't talk about Gan Eden as one place. It says that there's Eden, then a Nahar, a river coming out of Eden, and that river was giving water to the Gan, to the gardens. There's Eden itself, and then there's the Garden of Eden, which is a lower level. And then even lower than the garden, spiritually lower, the river splits into 4 separate sections, 4 separate rivers. So now this river comes after the Gan. So what does it mean spiritually? So Eden is the original source. Eden is Chachma, the first sphere, the highest sphere. And what's special about Chachma is that it lets the Ein Sof shine through. Chachma is not when we're consciously trying to work something out, but it's where we just, with us, it's where we just let our subconscious talk. We have an idea, we have a dream, we have a memory. So it's just letting the subconscious talk. Then afterwards, we'll try to understand it. So therefore, Chachma is within limited spheres. It's the closest thing to Ein Sof. And so that is Eden. And then the Nahar, the river, is what brings, lets the light of Chachma flow throughout Atzilus, throughout the highest world, all the way until the Gan, the garden, which is Malchus of Atzilus. But the whole Atzilus is still the world of oneness, where there's only Hashem and there's no real division. But then once the Hashem's light comes to the next, beyond the Malchus, to create new worlds which are separate from Hashem, so then the river divides into 4 separate heads, 4 separate sections. And where every river, just like physically every river might have a different, some rivers have clearer water, others are more murky water, some rivers are nicer and sweeter water, others more bitter, some are longer rivers, some are shorter rivers, in a similar way spiritually, that each river has its own qualities. And so the river of Pishon, which is the Nile, that is the archangel, the ministering angel of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, and there's a lot of sparks there, much more than what fell into the other rivers and other places, and much more than in Bavel, Mesopotamia, Babylonia. Next paragraph, the Yatsa Yuvan. So now, this is the concept of miracles, especially the makos, that the purpose was to break the outer shell, break the clip of Mitzrayim. Actually, the pasuk says that the purpose of the makos were v'yedu Mitzrayim keni Hashem. Egypt shall know that I am Hashem. In other words, it wasn't just to punish them, it wasn't just to free the Jews, but it was so that Egypt should recognize Hashem. But this word v'yedu also comes from the word of breaking, like we see in Shoftim, that when Gideon had a war with Midian, and he asked for support, and then some of the cities didn't support him, and he said that I'm going to come back to you, you'll be punished. And then after he won the war with Midian, he indeed punished those cities and the elders of those cities. And he uses the word there v'yedu about breaking them and punishing them. So that's so v'yedu Mitzrayim is that Mitzrayim will be punished, will be broken, and that will let the sparks of from Tohu be revealed and go back to their source. This is the idea. It says about Kriyas Yamsuf, about the splitting of the sea, that sus v'rech Rama, that the horse and its rider were thrown in the sea. So the rider represents a klippa, which rides and controls and covers over the sparks of godliness. And when they are broken, then the sparks are revealed to really be godly. They're called out for what they really are. And this is one answer to the question that on one hand, it says that the purpose of Kriyas Yamsuf, of the splitting of the sea, and then all the miracles, was that Egypt should know I am Hashem, Hashem says. But on the other hand, it says that they were all destroyed. The entire army were destroyed and fell into the sea. The sea fell onto them, and that was it. So what's the story? Are they going to continue and know about Hashem, or were they all destroyed? So now, according to the interpretation we gave, that V'yedel means they'll be broken, not only that they will know. So Mitzrayim was broken, and through that, the spark of godliness will go back to its source, and that spark will know about Hashem. So now, all 10 plagues were about breaking Mitzrayim to then let the sparks of godliness free from their shell. And whereas for the Jewish people themselves, they didn't need these miracles. Why? Because they already had faith and they already believed. That like the pasuk says, that the Vayomer Hashem, the people believed and they heard that Hashem has remembered them. So they didn't need the miracles for themselves. They needed it only for the sparks of godliness that was stuck in the clipper. Now this is the final paragraph of the Vayomer Hashem. So this explains why the very first miracle was the miracle of the staff turning into a snake and then turning back into a staff, swallowing the other staffs of the magicians of Pari. So the idea is that that, as we said, the point of the Marcus is to break Klippa and break this sense of separate ego and separate independent identity, where they say, yes, Hashem is the God of gods, but I'm also a God. So the miracles show that there's only Hashem and that's it. And that every existence needs to receive its vitality again every moment from Hashem. And there's so many tzimtzumim, there's so many contractions and concealments to the extent that it appears that we're independent, and then when it's revealed how all this light beyond the tzimtzumim and all the tzimtzum, all the contractions and concealments are nullified. So then we see how everything is Hashem. So therefore, the very first miracle to start with is the miracle of the staff and turning to a serpent, because the word matecha, a staff, comes from extending something and tilting something, turning it and letting it extend out. Shevet is also about extending outward, like a branch. And so all the hamshacha, all bring down of Hashem's light throughout his shalshalos. It's all called matecha. It's all called a staff. Then we have tanin, the serpent. What is the serpent? The serpent is the idea of klippa, of impurity, which covers godliness. So Moshe and Aharon showed how the staff turns into the snake, meaning that the snake, klippa, really gets its chayas, it gets its energy from the staff, which is Hashem's light coming down throughout all the worlds. Like the pasuk says, that its feet go down into the place of death. In other words, that Hashem's light go down to even energize the klippa. Because Malchus continues throughout all worlds, like it says, Malchus become Inshallah, and to all the way until the snake, until klippa. And then the snake turned back into a staff and Aaron's staff swallowed the staffs of all the sorcerers, the Egyptian magicians. And this represents that the snake, which is klippa, realizes that really everything's Hashem and is nullified before Hashem and goes back to Kedusha. And this is the idea of refining the sparks. So this shows Mitzrayim and it shows Pari that you're not really a yesh, you're not a separate ego, everything is Hashem. And at every moment Hashem enlivens everything and everyone again. The only thing is Hashem is a kel mistate, is a God who conceals his work and therefore we don't always see it. But as soon as he wants to turn the snake back into a staff to show how klippa is not a separate existence, that immediately happens, and then the snake is like it never existed in the first place. And then the rest of the miracles of the 10 plagues were to continue this theme, to show that really everything is Hashem. And if at any time it looks different, that's a mirage. It's Hashem wants to give us that sort of perspective in order for us then to come back to Hashem. But whenever Hashem wants, he can straight away show us what you think is a snake is really a staff. It's part of that downward extension of Hashem's light. The second Vayomer, Dima Masro Lachein Emer. So now this second Vayomer on page Dafnun Zayin, page 57, begins with the pasuk that Hashem tells Moshe to tell the Jewish people that Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, and I'll take you out of Mitzrayim. And here we have the four Lashonos Shalgola, the four expressions of redemption. It's the Vayitzeisi, the Tzalti, the Ga'alti, and the Lakachti, that Hashem will take us out and he'll save us and he'll redeem us and take us. And then finally there's the fifth, Vahevesi, that Hashem will bring us to Eretz Yisrael. So now, why is it so important? Like the Mishnah says in Brachas, and we say at the Seder, that we always have to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. We always have to remember the Exodus, and we mention it both by day and by night. Why is that so important? With any other miracle, any other salvation, we don't have this mitzvah that we always have to remember it. Why specifically here with the Exodus from Egypt? So to begin to answer, we know that as it says in Mishnah's Pesachim, that in every generation, a person has to see himself, and as the Alter Rebbe adds, to see himself every morning, every evening, as if right now is the time of the Exodus and he is going out of Mitzrayim. Now, the idea of Mitzrayim and the idea of Exodus is that has multiple levels, because there's Mitzrayim in Klippa, in the side of impurity, and Mitzrayim within Kedusha. Similarly, you have Mitzrayim in the physical world or land of Egypt, and you have Mitzrayim in the spiritual space. Similarly with the Jewish people as well. There's the Jewish people down here and the Jewish people in their source, Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish collective above. And so just as it is in spiritual worlds, also there is Mitzrayim and Yetzias Mitzrayim inside our hearts. So Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish collective, is the idea of a love of Hashem and a bliss in Hashem, like the pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, "Ma yafisa, ma na'amta," how beautiful and how pleasant. Love with pleasure, just this pure love of Hashem. And similarly, down here, we're also here that we're also here to develop a love and a joy in Hashem, like the pasuk says, "If to Hashem simcha," that we should serve Hashem with joy, and like the other pasuk says in Hallel Mabanim Semecha, that the mother of children is happy. So, we'll explain a little bit later more about this pasuk. So we're meant to have simcha from meditating, from reflecting about Hashem, and to the meditation and understanding that's connected to bina, hisbonenus, and therefore bina is the mother. And when we reflect about Hashem, think about Hashem deeply, so that will bring us to simcha, and that's the meaning of Eim Habanim Smecha. The mother of the children is happy. The mother is Bina, which gives birth to the children, Ava and Yira, love and reverence of Hashem. And it also will make us happy that we're happy that we have this opportunity to connect to Hashem, and to free ourselves from the shackles of the body, to just be full of the excitement of Hashem, and to the extent that it says that because we didn't serve Hashem with joy and with and with the gladness of the heart, may rove kol, more than all good. So because we didn't have this joy in Hashem, therefore we end up with problems and punishment, etc. So what does it mean spiritually? May rove kol, that Hashem is greater, it's the real thing, than all pleasures. In other words, even spiritual pleasures, Gan Eden Elyon, Gan Eden Atachten. But the ultimate is Hashem himself. And this is because all the different levels of the light of Hashem and understanding of Hashem, pleasure of Hashem, they're all from a ray of Hashem, not from Hashem himself. They're all from Hashem's name and all from Malchus, which is the sphere, the attribute which gives space for another. And so this is like the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is the attribute of godliness, which rests and gets involved in the earthlings in creations. So that Shekhinah is connected to Malchus, which, like we say in Ashrei, it's commonly quoted in Chassidus, Malchus Lamim. That there's the Hashem's Malchus is the Malchus of each world. That ability of kingship, which is to lead others, continues throughout all the worlds, and in each world it gives space for others according to the degree of concealment of Hashem in that world. Like we say in Baruch Shamar Yachid, that Hashem is really alone. Where does the life force, the vitality for worlds come from? That comes from Melech. That the idea of Hashem getting involved, that's only from Malchus, but Hashem himself is totally beyond, and it's only a ray of Hashem that comes down. Now the Shekhinah, which is Hashem's name, even that is really alone and it's really beyond. And like Niskav Shemo Levada, Hashem's name is also beyond, and only Hoidoi, there's only Hashem's glory, which is Al Eretz V'Shamayim. So therefore, whenever we're trying to connect, we're trying to appreciate Hashem, so we're only getting from a limited ray, and that's all we're able to connect to. But on the other hand, when we do Torah mitzvahs, so then we're connecting to Hashem himself. Like we say when we do it before we do a mitzvah, who sanctified us through his mitzvahs, meaning these are Hashem's mitzvahs that Hashem also puts on tefillin and Hashem davens. When we do a mitzvah, we give tzedakah, so Hashem is there with the tzedakah, like it says, Ani medaber tzedakah, that I speak with the righteousness. Hashem is actually involved, and the Torah and Hashem are all one. So again, Torah is one with Hashem, and so this is not just the Shekhinah as it comes down into worlds, but it's Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Kudsha Bricha, the Holy One, blessed be He. Holy is the idea of being beyond. Hashem, as He is beyond, beyond worlds, is still involved and cares for the mitzvahs. Now, the entire worlds, both physical and spiritual, they're all just made of two letters of Hashem's name. It says, Ki b'ka Hashem tzorei lamim, that with Yud K, Hashem is the rock of worlds, that the power of worlds, because Yud is Olam Haba and Hey in this world. And Zohar takes it even further. It says, with one thought, Hashem creates all worlds. This is like what we say, that all of existence is scanned by Hashem in one shot. And all generations are scanned also in one shot throughout the entire existence of the world. Because it's just like one thought has no value compared to all the possible thoughts a person can think in his life, and certainly one thought has no value compared to the person's essence. So similarly, all the generations throughout all of creation are like nothing before Hashem. They're just like one ray, and before Hashem, Hashem's essence is like the sun beyond the rays of sunlight. And therefore, it's really all nothing. But nevertheless, we have an opportunity to connect Hashem himself through Torah mitzvahs. And this should give us such joy and happiness that we're able to connect Hashem's unlimited light, Hashem himself, in our Torah mitzvahs. And then we bring, when we do Torah mitzvahs, we bring upon ourselves Hashem's unlimited light, that which is beyond all worlds and beyond anything that any creation, any angel can achieve, other than through Torah mitzvahs. Next paragraph. But just awareness, intellectual awareness, is not enough. It has to touch our heart, and then and be revealed in our heart. Because joy, there's different types of joy. There's sasa and simcha, but when we talk about simcha, simcha is always revealed. Like a king who's normally quiet, is normally inside his palace and people don't get to see him. But when he's happy, when he's excited, simcha, so then he's available to everyone. So when we serve Hashem with simcha, like it says in Tehillim Kapitel Kuf Min Mizmor Seder, if it's Hashem with simcha, so we serve Hashem with joy. So then that means that Hashem's light is revealed and available, revealed to us down here in this world. And being revealed means revealed in our hearts, like we said before about Aim Habanim Samecha, that the mother of children is happy, meaning that when we have simcha, so then it doesn't stay just with Aim, it doesn't stay just with the mother with Bina, but it is always revealed further. So it's revealed in the children, which is in the midas, particularly in Ava, in love. But if it's still concealed inside his mind, so then it's not simcha. And it's like a pregnancy before giving birth, so she's not yet the mother because she hasn't given birth to her children. So then we have something stopping the birth happening, making the birth difficult, which is stopping the revelation of Hashem's light. That's the spiritual counterpart for what pregnancy and birth is a metaphor for this. So this is the idea of the Galus Mitzrayim, the exile of Egypt, which is stopping Hashem's light from being revealed, and it's blocking. Mitzrayim comes from the word constriction. So when there's a tight spot, so then Mitzrayim stops it from coming through. And besides in pregnancy and birth, we have a similar concept with the neck as well, that we have the head, and the head has all the vitality and all the ideas. It's the most important part of the body, and then it has to come down to the other important parts, the heart and the lungs and all the other important parts. And in between there's the neck, and the neck is narrow, and because it's narrow, it could be difficult. It can block out the sort of space to let the head flow into the body. And what this means spiritually is that we might understand something in our mind, but it doesn't necessarily permeate our hearts. And this is what the ministers of Pari do. The butler and the baker and the Sarat HaBachim, the head butcher. So they're all blocking the light coming from the head into the body. And then that's the matecha, the constriction of the neck is like the Mitzrayim. And also like a pregnancy, where it's hard to give birth. So during pregnancy, the whole stomach is full and it's squashy. And this is like in the time of Galus, in the time of exile. And Galus is often compared to pregnancy, and Geula, redemption, is compared to birth. And we find a similar thing about the Mashiach, the times right before Mashiach, they're called the birth pangs of Mashiach, Chevle Mashiach. And the idea is that we've got birth is about revelation, that the child actually comes out and can be seen and then can develop. So that's the idea of Hashem's light being revealed. And this comes first through the birth pangs, where it's difficult and there's pain and there's bitterness, and this is where Hashem's light is blocked from coming out, and it's blocked by all our physical needs. When we're focused on that, then Hashem's light can't come out. But then we have the birth, and the birth with its revelation that brings us to simcha, to joy. like it says, Yismach Yisrael B'Esav, that the Jewish people are happy in their maker. So then all the disturbances disappear, and all the bitterness is sweetened. This is just like once the baby is born, and suddenly then then the everything is better, and the mother's so excited. So this is the time of simcha that comes after the birth. So we have this idea with Canaan, that the name of Canaan comes from the name to subdue, to be machnia, to subdue the klippa, which blocks Hashem's light from being revealed, and to allow a spiritual birth, and then everything is fine. And like it says, that then we can throw all these sins into the sea, that they become like nothing, they become not noticeable. Now, the exile in Mitzrayim is like the constriction, both of pregnancy and like the constriction of the neck, which blocks between the head and the mind and the heart. And then the redemption is where we use the neck, so the neck can pass through from the head to the heart. So it's the idea of kol Yaakov, the voice is the voice of Yaakov, which the voice is from the neck, using our voice for Torah. When we learn Torah, so we're calling Hashem's light down to us, that it should be revealed within us. And this is why this is what it means when it says that anyone who learns Torah, Hashem is reading opposite him. So this is the level of a sovev, a light from beyond. And we're calling, when it's the word for reading Torah is the same word for calling Torah, because we're, so to speak, we're beckoning Hashem's light down. And this is the meaning of Haitzesi Eschem, that Hashem says, I'll take you out of the burdens, the difficulty of Mitzrayim, that through Torah Shebichsav, through the written Torah. So then we're calling Hashem, and then we're redeemed from the subjugation of exile, and all disturbances just wither away and disappear. So this is all Vaitzesi to free us, to liberate us from exile. The exile is where we're not able to reveal Hashem's light, where we're not able to express that and notice that connection. And then Vaitzesi is to bring it out, and it happens through the Torah Shebechsav, where we're calling Hashem. But then, next paragraph, Ach Leizu. Then we have a high level. After the four expressions of redemption, there's a fifth one, Vayvesi, that Hashem will bring us Eretz Yisrael. So Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Torah Chava, a good and expansive land. And Eretz Yisrael refers to Torah Sheba'al-Peh, the oral Torah. So it's called Eretz Chava, an expansive land, because it's always expanding. The Torah Shebechsav has a limited amount of words, whereas the Torah Sheba'al-Peh is always getting bigger. And that's why Torah is compared, Eretz Yisrael is compared to tzvi, to a deer, because once you take off the skin will never fit over the flesh, because it's the idea of expansion. So Torah Shebechsav, the main thing is the letters, and it has an exact amount of letters, exact amount of words. And whether we understand or not, but it's the main thing is just the letters and the words. And if even one letter is damaged, then the Sefer Torah is possible. We won't make a bracha on that Sefer Torah. But the understanding is less important. Whereas with Torah Sheba'al-Peh, the understanding is the main thing. With Torah Shebechsav, it doesn't tell us exactly how to live as a Jew. It doesn't give us the halacha in a set, organized way. A lot of Torah is stories, and even the part which is halacha is also stories. It's saying Hashem told Moshe to say such and such. So the main thing is the story and Hashem's light, rather than to work out the halacha. The halacha comes in Torah Sheba'al-Peh, but in Torah Shebechsav, it's not very clear. Like, for example, how to make tefillin and how to all the halachas of tefillin. So that's only in Torah Sheba'al-Peh, and Torah Shebechsav, you wouldn't be able to work it out. So Torah Shebechsav is from Chachma, whereas Torah Sheba'al-Peh is what's called chachma tata. Chachma, as it comes down into the lower spheres, into Malchus. So it says that it's enough for the wise with a hint. So this is like when a teacher hints something to students so that the student should understand it himself. But though it does hint halachas, it doesn't say it clearly, and therefore it's not the ultimate in terms of the learning and understanding of what to do. It's just bringing down Hashem's light, and therefore what's important is the specific letters, exactly the ksiv and the kri, how it's written, even though it's read in a different way, and every letter has to be written properly because it hints to very high things from Hashem's high, the chachma law, the highest level of chachma and atzilus. But we don't actually understand what to do yet with it. Whereas in Torah Sheba'al Peh, we know what to do. And the letters are less important. It's not about bringing down some spiritual energy. It's understanding the Torah. And therefore, the Torah Sheba'al Peh keeps on expanding with Rashi and Tosfos and all the Mefarshim, even every Talmud Vasik, every upright student who has a new understanding of Torah. That too is part of Torah Sheba'al Peh. So this is the idea of the expanding Torah, like the deer, the skin of the deer that expands. Whereas with Torah B'chsav, it's an exact amount of letters and there's no growth. It's very particular the way Hashem gives it to us. Next paragraph of V'zeh Yovan, and we'll go all the way to the end of the Maimer. So V'zeh Yovan, to now understand why Torah B'chsav is called Mikra, because Mikra means to call. And when we learn Torah, and in particular Torah B'chsav, we're calling Hashem, we're beckoning Hashem. That is, light should be manifest upon us. But even with Torah, where we're calling Hashem's light, so to speak, but it's still there's Hashem and there's us, and we're calling Hashem. Whereas with Torah Sheba'al Peh, it says Masnis in Malkusa, and Mishnah is like the queen. Mishnah is the monarch, royalty. Simply, by the way, this comes from the Marabea, where it's talking about there are two rabbis with similar names, Rav Malchi and Rav Malchiyai, and it says that if you want to know who said what, so according to one opinion, the way to know is that the one who speaks about Mishnayis, who testifies about Mishnayis, is Malkusa, which is Rav Malchaya, whereas the other one is the one who talks about just Gemara, about halacha outside of Mishnayis, is Rav Malchaya. So and Rav Malchaya, which comes from the word to be a king, so that's why the Gemara says there, a sign to remember which one said which is that Mishnah Malchus of the Mishnah is the queen, and therefore Rav Malchaya is the one who speaks about Mishnayos. But either way, what does it mean spiritually? That the Mishnah is like a monarch that dictates what the law is, and the idea is that with Torah Sheba'al Peh, when we understand the Torah, we're not just repeating words, but we understand it. So then Hashem talks through us. And then our mind is one with Hashem's mind, and our mouth with Hashem's mouth. Like the Maggid, the angel who taught the Beis Yosef, said to the Beis Yosef, I am the Mishnah speaking through your mouth. The Beis Yosef is speaking, but Hashem, godliness is coming through his mouth. And this makes a Derech Tachtonim, that we are a dwelling place for Hashem, that Hashem is resting right on us. Even though the Hashem's light has to descend very low in order to get involved in physical things, like what does Mishnayos talk about? It talks about agriculture and business and marriage, and when it works and when it doesn't work. So it talks about all physical things. But still, it reaches very high. We can reach a high level of bittul in Torah Sheba'al Peh. This is like the hand that the hands can lift itself above the head. So similarly, action can lift itself higher than machshava. And like it says, so machshava tchila and l'chadodi, that the end of action is rooted in the beginning of thought. Or like it says, Eishes chayal teres baila, that a woman of valor is the crown above her husband. Or not, so for mitchilosan, the end is wedged into the beginning. So when we discuss in Torah all physical matters and simple matters, but we're letting Hashem's light shine right through us, rest right on us, and therefore it's even higher level. And that's why with Torah we know that we actually know what Hashem wants, because it connects Hashem's rotzin in a deeper way. Now, this is what the pasuk means when asati tzvi ve'eretz hachayim. So this word tzvi, land of desire. I will give you as a desirable and beautiful in the land of life. So the land of life is Torah Peh, and that is what is really desired, because it reaches even deeper in a way than Torah Shabbat. To reveal Hashem's ratzon, and this is what the pasuk means, talking about the right after it says Vehevesi, that I'll bring you to Eretz Yisrael, which is the idea of Torah Sheba'al Peh. It says, I'll bring you to the land Asher Nosasi es Yadi, which I raised my hands, Lasi, to give it to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to give it to the forefathers Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And when Asati es Elachem Meirasha, I give it to you as an inheritance. Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. So we already explained that the hand refers to Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is telling us what to do practically, but sometimes the hand can be raised above the head, which represents Torah Sheba'al. And then it says, I raised my hand to give it to the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, which is the midas, chesed, gvur, and tiferes, and each halacha tilts towards a certain one path, toward the right, the left, or the center. And I give it to you as an inheritance, Hashem says, I am Hashem, meaning that when we learn Torah, then Hashem speaks through us. Final paragraph. Now, this is all dependent to have Hashem's light revealed upon us through our learning of halacha. So it depends on us first, awakening a love to Hashem. And this is why we mention the Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus each day. The important part, it's not some sort of history lesson, but to always keep this love aroused and awakened, because even if we daven well in the morning, but afterwards we get involved in business and other pursuits, so then the davening fades away. And even if we're learning Torah discusses physical things, and therefore still the love of Hashem, focused just purely on Hashem, it fades away. And therefore we have to daven again, and we have to say Shema again at night as well. But it's then so we have to awaken this love of Hashem and joy from deep in our hearts. But then that's not enough. Then we have to we have to call out to Hashem, and this is through Torah Sheba'al, where every word of Torah Sheba'al is calling out to Hashem. Then we have Torah Sheba'al Peh, which Torah Sheba'al Peh is the level of complete bittul, complete self-nullification, to just let Hashem speak through us and to have the halacha coming out of us in a clear way. And this is we reach this through always remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim, and we say at the end of Vayomer, where we remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, and Ani Hashem Lekechem, etc. Lias Lachem Lelekim, that Hashem should be for us as a God, and so this is this is about Torah Sheba'al Peh, where Hashem just shines through us, and Hashem speaks through us, and this happens through always remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim. So in short, the first pasuk of Vayitzeisi talks about Torah Shebichsav, effectively, that where we every word of it is holy and it's calling out to Hashem, but still we are calling out to Hashem, a separate existence. Whereas for Hevesi, Hashem says, "I'll bring you to Israel, and there you'll be able to keep halacha." So that represents a pure godliness in a higher way, although it's talking about physical things, but we work out exactly what is Hashem's rotzim, what is Hashem's desire, and therefore, and with total nullification for Hashem, that we just, and then Hashem is just speaking through us.